Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Lawton, a fellow with True North, here for another True North report, this time on a bit of a different schedule and a different day than normal. I typically do these on, actually, you know what, we don't have like a fixed schedule. I just typically end up doing them on Wednesday or Thursday. But I wanted to break with that to unpack and really delve into some of the breaking news that we're seeing unfold in Canadian politics this week. Mainly, I'm not even going to tee up a bunch of other stuff, because the big story is the resignation from cabinet of Jody Wilson-Raybould. Jody Wilson-Raybould is the Veterans, or was until this morning, the Veterans Affairs Minister, but most notably, she was the Attorney General who claims that the PMO tried to pressure her to intervene in the prosecution of SNC-Lavalin, a liberal-connected and, quite frankly, corruption-ridden firm in Montreal. And what is so fascinating about this, I want to walk you through the timeline here, because the story that started this all, the Globe and Mail report citing unnamed sources, started last week on, I think, Thursday morning. Thursday morning, Globe and Mail comes out with a story saying that the PMO tried to pressure Jody Wilson-Raybould. Trudeau denies this, says that they're false, and that he never directed, and this is the key word, that Justin Trudeau nor anyone in his office no, he says they didn't. So Jody Wilson-Raybould has been very tight-lipped on this whole thing. She has claimed solicitor-client privilege, says that she can't comment on it because that would be violating the sacred relationship that a lawyer has with their client and the secrecy that is supposed to be at the center there. Her client is the Government of Canada, or was, when she was the Attorney General, the Government of Canada. And we often view the Minister of Justice in the role as a cabinet minister that oversees the Justice Department, which is valid. But in cases like these, the Attorney General has a very specific role. It is the government's chief lawyer. And when push comes to shove, her job is to go to bat for the government. And the point that I made in a video I produced on this yesterday, I think, was that when you are the Attorney General for the government, that means that you are representing the people. You can't represent the government without actually representing the people that government is supposed to represent. And I know that sounds like a convoluted sentence, but the point I'm trying to make there is that her accountability should not lie or end with the Prime Minister, but her accountability should extend and end with the people of Canada. And to be clear, this is not an indictment of Jody Wilson-Raybould, because at this point it sounds like she actually is the only one that has a level of moral clarity about what's going on here. This is the first Indigenous woman to ever be the Attorney General of Canada, the highest ranking position that an Aboriginal person has ever had in the Canadian government. And as of this morning, she has resigned. She is gone from the cabinet, although she is still remaining as a Liberal member of Parliament. There was a report from one writer with APTN who said that Jody Wilson-Raybould was going to sit as an independent. That wasn't true. It was a kind of a miscommunication. Jody Wilson-Raybould, still an MP, still a Liberal MP, but not a cabinet member. And what's so important about this is that excuse me, there's something that is paramount in government called cabinet secrecy or cabinet confidence, which means anything that's discussed in the course of being in a cabinet meeting is protected. You cannot share it, not even with your own staff, unless they're given the same classification. So now that she is no longer in cabinet, even if she is a Liberal, she's got a lot more flexibility and a lot more latitude when it comes to criticizing what the government's doing. And when we look at Jody Wilson-Raybould's resignation letter, we see exactly where we're likely to find some cracks forming. I want to read this for you if you haven't encountered it yet. It was written this morning. She writes the following: "With a heavy heart, I am writing to tender my resignation as Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence. I want to thank all Canadians, and in particular, the residents of Vancouver Granville, who put their trust in me and supported me as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, and as the Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence. When I sought federal elected office, it was with the goal of implementing a positive and progressive vision of change on behalf of all Canadians and a different way of doing politics. My resignation as a Minister of the Crown in no way changes my commitment to seeing that fundamental change achieved. The work must and will carry on. To Canadian veterans and their families, I have the deepest admiration and respect for you. The decision is in no way a reflection of my desire to see your service and sacrifice upheld and honored. I only wish that I could have served you longer. To my officials and ministerial staff, thank you for your hard work in the service of all Canadians. I am truly grateful for all that you have done and will continue to do. I am aware that many Canadians wish for me to speak on matters that have been in the media over the last week. I am in the process of obtaining advice on the topics that I am legally permitted to discuss in this matter, and as such have retained the counsel of the Honourable Thomas Albert Cromwell, CC. Again, my thanks to all Canadians, regardless of background, geography, or party affiliation. We must stand together for the values that Canada is built on, and which are the foundation for our future. I look forward to continuing to serve as the Member of Parliament for Vancouver-Granville. Okay, a couple of takeaways here. Number one, she does not in this letter at all ever thank Justin Trudeau. She doesn't thank her colleagues in cabinet. She says that she's grateful to Canadians, to her constituents, to her staff. No thank you for giving her the opportunity to serve. So as Robin Urbach from CBC said in a tweet, this is very much a cold breakup if ever there was one. But then we compound this with Justin Trudeau's office's statement. They issued the following. Last night, the Prime Minister spoke with Jody Wilson-Raybould, who informed him she was tendering her resignation from cabinet. The Prime Minister convened a cabinet meeting this morning to inform his cabinet colleagues of Ms. Wilson-Raybould's resignation. The Prime Minister also spoke with Minister Sajjan, who immediately assumes responsibilities as acting Minister of Veterans Affairs. The Prime Minister will be in Winnipeg later today and will hold a press conference at which he will answer questions from the media. So when we put those two together, we have a statement from Jody Wilson-Raybould in which she does not even acknowledge that Trudeau was the one that put her there. And then we have a statement from Trudeau which doesn't acknowledge in any way any sense of gratitude to the service that Jody Wilson-Raybould has already contributed to her country. So this proves that we're not just talking about some combination of letters here that tells us that this is all part of a plan. This is very much an acrimonious split. And I think that Trudeau was honestly blindsided by this. I genuinely believe that he thought she was going to play ball and stay quiet. And I'll tell you why I think that. Because just 24 hours ago, which is, I realize, a lifetime in politics, but just 24 hours ago, Trudeau was answering questions about this, sort of, and he had said that he welcomed an investigation. And we'll talk about the ethics commissioner. The federal ethics commissioner is investigating this. But Trudeau said the following, that she would have resigned from cabinet if she had felt improperly pressured. His exact quote, "In our system of government, of course, her presence in cabinet should actually speak for itself." Just take that in. Her presence in cabinet should actually speak for itself. So Trudeau's surrogates, Trudeau's spokespeople and spin doctors try to make the claim that, oh, well, if she had that big of an issue with how things are going in the Trudeau cabinet, she wouldn't be there. And then you fast forward a day and she's gone from cabinet. She's saying, I'm out. So they made a calculation in using that line. A calculation in using that line that I think has now been a profound failure because she's not in cabinet. And the fact that she took such a personal sacrifice, because her political career in the Liberal Party of Canada under Justin Trudeau right now is done. If the Liberal Party changes, if Trudeau flips out for someone else, if they lose, different story. But under this particular government, she has no future now. So by resigning from cabinet, and by doing it in this way, she is genuinely putting her career on the line. Now, I want to make a couple of points here. I do not believe that she is standing up for the values that I want a politician to stand up for ideologically. She's not someone who stands up for the things that I care about, but I do believe from this whole chapter, with everything we've heard, that she is behaving and acting with integrity. And Trudeau, I don't like the stuff he's doing, but I also resent even more that there is no integrity. There is no integrity right now in what Justin Trudeau is doing. And everyone's saying, oh, she should cross the floor, cross the floor, cross the floor. I honestly find that to be a really dumb idea for two reasons. Number one, she's still a Liberal. She ran for the Liberals because she believes in what the Liberal Party believes. She's not a conservative by any stretch. And I don't think the Conservatives should be welcoming non-conservatives into the ranks just because they happen to share a common enemy. Maybe she has some alignment with the NDP, and her being from Vancouver, if she is going to switch parties before the election, it's a lot safer to go NDP if you're representing Vancouver-Granville than it is to go Conservative. But I want to get into this in a bit more detail. I want to read some comments here first. We've got, let's see, a lot of people saying hi, hi, hi. Hello to you all. We have Thomas who writes, I honestly hope she can be truthful for all of Canada. Yeah, I mean, this solicitor-client privilege thing is the most significant part of this. Because if Justin Trudeau genuinely cared about accountability and transparency, he could, as the head of the government in Canada, waive that solicitor-client privilege. He could say, full stop, yes, absolutely, I'm an open book, anyone can talk about this. He's not doing that. Kim writes, Jody Wilson-Raybould has nothing to thank Justin Trudeau for. He is a disgrace to Canada. Well, I think that there's a lot of agreement that you'll find, Kim. My point is that typically politicians will, even if they don't believe it, give the cursory, yes, and my thanks to so-and-so for doing this and this and this. And the fact that there wasn't even like a casual thank you in there speaks volumes. Let's see. Rosemary writes, the ethics commissioner, there's a joke. Well, yeah, and I'm going to get to that in a few moments because, in all honesty, the ethics commissioner has investigated Trudeau in the past, and what do we have to show for it? I mean, pay $500, apologize for taking a private vacation. This, if he's found guilty, will be the 5th ethics violation, and that is very much significant. Rhonda writes, I can imagine that she has been threatened. I can imagine what she has been threatened with by Trudeau. Well, career ruinment is probably what the threat is. Robin writes, what's her next move? I'll answer that in a second, Robin. Judy writes, lawyer to see what she can legally divulge. We've got so many comments here. We'll try to keep up with these as the show goes on. So I want to answer that question that was posed by Robin. What's her next move? And this dovetails on what Judy said about getting the lawyer. So this lawyer that she has secured for herself, Cromwell, is a Supreme Court or retired Supreme Court justice. So we're talking about someone here who is kind of among the best in Canada and certainly the most reputable. And she's getting a lawyer to, in her words, decide and figure out what it is that she can share publicly and what she can't. And this suggests that we're very likely to see something in the way of a tell-all very soon, Robin. So it's possible that this will be some full-length interview with Rosie Barton. It's possible she'll write some extended op-ed. I mean, I think that she's going to do some full-length sit-down interview. It won't be with me. I'll try. It won't be with me. She'll pick like the CBC or something. Because remember, she still is very much in alignment with what the Liberals are about. She took a stand, however, for due process and the rule of law. And she found that the current incarnation of the Liberal Party, in the reports that we're seeing, does not stand up for that rule of law. And that's the big issue here. So I don't think that anyone saying, will she cross the Conservatives? Will she? I don't think that's going to happen. I think she's helping the Conservatives. I think she's very much, the Conservatives are very much going to be the ones driving her story. But I do not believe for a second that she is a Conservative. And you may remember when Leona Alislev, the former Liberal MP from, I think, Newmarket Aurora, crossed to the Liberals in the summer, I had a very similar frustration, which is okay. That's fine that she's frustrated with the Liberals. The Conservatives shouldn't be welcoming her with open arms unless they have a shared foundation of values. And right now, the only shared foundation of values between the Liberals or the Conservatives and Jody Wilson-Raybould is a belief that Trudeau has royally screwed up. And that may not be enough to make her a Conservative, but it is enough to make her a key pillar in, I think, what the Conservatives and, for that matter, the People's Party and even the NDP should be doing right now, which is calling on Trudeau to answer questions. You have to remember here, Justin Trudeau was the captain of transparency and accountability and openness when he was using those words in pretty much every interview and every media statement back in 2013, 2014, 2015. And I have a video coming out tomorrow that's looking at that, just a bunch of tweets from him saying the Prime Minister needs to testify under oath. Sign the petition. The Prime Minister needs to testify under oath. Well, let's flip that around now. Justin Trudeau should testify under oath. And him saying that transparency should be the default, openness should be the default, that we should all, as our starting point, have government that is not keeping secrets from the people. And all of that has gone by the wayside now. Now that Justin Trudeau is in the Prime Minister's seat and he has access to these mechanisms that allow him to close off his government from public scrutiny, he's employing that. He's employing that. And we need to start getting some answers here. And the problem with the ethics commissioner is that the ethics commissioner does not have the ability to turn this into a bit of a show trial. And I'm not saying that I want a show trial, but I want there to be some public accountability as opposed to Justin Trudeau sitting in a room answering some questions and then this getting distilled into a very sanitized and very condensed report that everyone reads. That's what happened with the Bahamas vacation. Whereas if Justin Trudeau would agree to go before the Justice Committee, say, there would be a public questioning. And yes, it would be used for partisanship. The Conservatives would play it up. It would be not exactly like the Kavanaugh hearing in the US, but it would there's a risk that it would turn into something just very polarizing and partisan, but at least it would be public facing. Because we're past the point where the solution can exist in the back rooms. When the problem existed in the back rooms, the solution can't. When the problem took place in locked, closed doors, or when the problem took place behind locked, closed doors, the solution has to be in plain view with sunlight beaming down on it. And that's what Justin Trudeau needs to do. He needs to have a full, transparent, and public accounting of everything that happened. And for that, he needs to let Jody Wilson-Raybould off the leash that has been put around her vis-a-vis attorney-client privilege. And I believe wholeheartedly when she said that she thinks her hands are tied. The last thing she wants is to be disbarred, to be criminally charged. She can't do that. She needs to get a lawyer with a lot of experience to walk her through. You can say this, you can say this, you can say this. And I think we need to start looking at her not as a disgruntled cabinet member, but start looking at her as a whistleblower. Start looking at her as a whistleblower, in all honesty. David writes, where there is smoke. Yeah, well, at this point, we're seeing the smoke, we're seeing the embers, and I think within 24 hours, we'll probably start seeing the fire. Cheryl writes, she may have just sacrificed her career, but it's the truth she has to speak. Did she resign because of what it did to her personally by demoting her rather than potential corruption? Well, why she resigned? I mean, if she genuinely had a big issue with what was going on, and it was a deal breaker, she probably could have resigned right then and there. She could have said back in, I think, October when this is rumored to have happened, no, I'm done. I'm walking away. She did stay in. She tried to do her part. But now that she's being thrown under the bus, then it becomes where she has to start standing her ground and digging her feet in a bit more. And I think that's what we're seeing now. So I believe her resignation is not because of the corruption directly, but her resignation is because this is the only way she's able to speak out about what went on. And I mean, we're looking at someone who, if she takes down Justin Trudeau, she'll be the Conservatives' favorite person, but she'll also be the future leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. Louisa writes, transparency is just for others, not for Trudeau. Yeah, that's precisely the problem here, is that Justin Trudeau talked a big game when he wanted Stephen Harper to be more transparent, but all of a sudden when the shoe's on the other foot, the CTV headline that was a great one, I'm paraphrasing, but Attorney General sees no reason to probe alleged PMO interference. The Attorney General, who's appointed by the Prime Minister, sees no reason to look into the Prime Minister. So the government has done that whole thing. I don't know if you've seen that police meme that goes around, but we've investigated ourselves and we've determined that nothing happened. You can't investigate yourself. You just can't. But this is exactly where we're going to see an impasse here. You cannot square these two completely conflicting narratives. On one side, that nothing happened, that no one was directed to do anything, that this is all false. that Justin Trudeau may have talked about SNC-Lavalin, but he told her she could make her decision, versus the Globe and Mail report that there was pressure and there was strong arm. These two are, you can't have both of these be true. They are in contradiction with one another. So herein lies the question mark. One of the big question marks: who blinks first? And I think you're going to start to see some other fractures here. We saw a couple of days ago the Liberal MP, Céline César-Chavannes, who apparently made a joking comment at a Robert Burns dinner a couple of weeks ago that was supporting Jody Wilson-Raybould. She tweeted this week about Jody Wilson-Raybould's courage and bravery. Now, as I understand, she's not running again, but therein lies another one that the Liberals have trotted out as a token, who seems to be siding with Jody Wilson-Raybould. Look, I'm not at all one for identity politics. I don't like it. I don't care about it. I don't think it helps. But there is something to the symbolism here. That Trudeau, who prides himself on being the feminist prime minister, the pro-Indigenous prime minister, has now thrown the female Indigenous justice minister, or former justice minister, under the bus. And he has, again, a minority female, a black female in Céline César-Chavannes, who is taking aim at him indirectly as well. So all of these little tokens that he has put out seem to be ultimately pawns that can be sacrificed at the first sign of trouble. And that's where we are now. Most people in politics will stick to wherever the path to power is, which means most people will keep their mouths shut. It's the fact of life. Liberals, conservatives, doesn't matter. Most people will go along with it because they want a seat in the cabinet. They want to be running in the next election. They want to be in good graces of the prime minister, who right now holds all the power. But when that starts to fracture, that's when you see people drop like flies. And I think we may be at the starting point of that right now. We may be at the starting point because Jody Wilson-Raybould is not a Leona Alleslev. And with all due respect to Leona Alleslev, most people had never heard of her before she crossed to the Conservatives. She's not even Céline César-Chavannes. She is a high-profile member of this government, one of the most visible members of this government up until this morning, and now she's gone. And she's gone in a way that suggests she is angling to make a power play very, very soon. Karen asks, why has the RCMP not stepped in? Well, and Bartley asked a similar question. Why do you think they are not involved? Well, for starters, and I talked about this with Leo Knight, who's a True North fellow and former RCMP officer the other day, you have to take into consideration a few different things here. Number one, the RCMP does not move swiftly on stuff like this. They want to collect evidence. So if the RCMP is investigating, that could take time, and it could take days, weeks, months, or hopefully not years, but theoretically a year. So that's part of it. Number two, we don't know if there was any criminal wrongdoing or if it's just ethical issues. So we have a conflict of interest and ethics commissioner in Ottawa who's tasked with looking up ethical concerns. It's possible that someone has broken the ethics law but not broken criminal law. And remember that Justin Trudeau, as Prime Minister, is allowed to talk to his Attorney General about ongoing cases. The Attorney General is allowed to intervene in prosecution. There's a path that it has to be done through, but this is all allowed. Where it would be criminal is if this intervention happened because of something that was untoward. If this intervention happened through means that were criminal, such as bribery, extortion, corruption. And we know that SNC-Lavalin has wound up facing criminal charges and convictions on corruption and bribery scandals. So we know that it wouldn't be out of character for the company. We don't know if there was anything linking that conduct to this particular government, though. And that's the big challenge here. That's ultimately where we're going to see the question marks of the next chapter of this, is whether the wrongdoing is just political. But remember, I also don't think that the RCMP involvement at this point matters as much, because the story is public enough that people are able to formulate an opinion on it based on the information that is available. And the public component of this may be enough, because remember, in politics, it doesn't need to be criminal wrongdoing that sinks you. It can also be PR wrongdoing or just political faux pas. And right now we're seeing that. I mean, when there is a fracture in the cabinet this close to an election, That's the other part. We are 8 months away from the election. We are probably about 4 months from the starting of campaign season, because once MPs go on summer break, which should be around May, even if it's not the RIP period, that's basically when the election is going to start. So we're looking at a period of, maybe May, June, July, August, September, maybe even 5 months of campaigning, which means we're 3 months away from it. So this is not going to be irrelevant. And the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner will have a report done before then. This will take a little bit of time, but it should be done before the election, which means we may have a finding yet again that Trudeau has broken federal law. Trudeau was the first prime minister in Canadian history to have been found to violate federal law while in office, and that was ethics laws. So it doesn't need to be an RCMP issue for it to go to a significant length. Now, remember, Trudeau has a very strong grip on his caucus and on his party. I don't think they're ready to pounce on him like Patrick Brown's PC party was, for example, when there was a bit of a hint of wrongdoing and people were already dissatisfied enough that it became easy to push him away. Trudeau doesn't have that problem. I mean, he still has a lot of popularity within his party, and he has up until this point. Now, I don't know how large a constituency Jody Wilson-Raybould has within the Liberals of people that would believe her over him. But it is interesting that Justin Trudeau, the big believer in believe all women, is now probably going to be headed towards this strategy of calling a woman that he endowed with a very significant position a liar. That's what this is headed towards. She's going to make all these claims. Justin Trudeau has already said the claims in the Globe and Mail report were false. And he's going to start saying she's a liar. And the believe all women narrative will crack when a prominent, strong, independent woman is calling out Justin Trudeau for his nonsense. So that's what I see happening here. I mean, she has lawyered up. These are in her own words. She's brought on legal counsel to help guide her through the process of what she can say and can disclose moving forward. So that is going to be what we can see next. It's not going to happen next week, most likely, but I'd say within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're probably going to see some big tell-all from Jody Wilson-Raybould in the form of a sit-down interview with CBC. That's my prediction here. I'm making it at 2:35 Eastern Time on February 12th. If I'm wrong, I'll just delete the video, so don't save any copies of it, folks. But that's something we're likely to see. And then from there, I think we'll start to see a bit of a slander campaign about Jody Wilson-Raybould coming through unofficial sources, which can probably be linked back to the Liberal spin machine. And that's because if what happened is what the Globe and Mail describes, and this is the if, it is just a report based on anonymous sources, but if what happened is how the Globe and Mail describes it, then heads have to roll one way or another. And it's either going to be the person who, if the story is not true, the person who made up those claims, which may well link back to Jody Wilson-Raybould. And if it is true, it's going to be damning to the person who tried to pressure Jody Wilson-Raybould. And this eventually led to her getting kicked out of cabinet or resigning on her own. And I think that, again, I have to reiterate the point that I genuinely believe Trudeau didn't see it coming, because yesterday he was saying that, oh, well, if she had any issues, she wouldn't have left cabinet, or she would have left cabinet. And well, now less than 24 hours later, she's left cabinet. So this was a very, very bad miscalculation by the Trudeau spin machine, and one for which he and his team will now be paying. And remember, this isn't Friday. This isn't a Friday before a long weekend where things kind of go away. This is still early in the week. There is a lot more fuel left in the tank of this story here. And I think that we'll genuinely see some change happen. I mean, I'm leery to do anything that involves like being published a day after I write it, because I'm convinced that this story will change very rapidly. We're at that point now. So I want to just close here, read a few comments before we go. Let's see. James writes, the facts remain that Justin Trudeau is not truly representing Canada. The massive foreign funding increase for the Liberal Party must be exposed. To do so would provide transparency about who Justin Trudeau truly represents. Well, the foreign campaign funding is an issue I've talked about a lot. Not relevant to this story, but again, there are a lot of people that want to keep Trudeau in office at all costs. Let's see. Rosemary writes, hope her legal counsel isn't a Liberal. Well, I think that he is a Liberal appointed justice, a former Supreme Court justice, but by all accounts, he's a very well-reputed and well-regarded one. So he's agreed to represent her, so I think that means he must start to see at least a bit of truth in what she's saying. Bruce writes, thanks for the update, Andrew. Keep up the good work. Well, on that note, I'll end on a compliment. Thank you very much, Bruce. Really do appreciate it. We'll have lots more on this as the story develops, folks. This is Andrew Lawton for True North. Thank you, God bless, and good day, Canada.